How's it going, man? Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be on the show today and talk some football.
Yes, thank you very much. Hey, sorry, had a little mic issue there for a second. Just want to let me recap what I just said since I was muted. So we've got Jake on. Jake is a former Division I college football player with Arkansas and Texas, and we're coworkers. We're good friends, and I got him on the show today because we want to talk a little Dallas. He's a lifelong Dallas Cowboys fan. Happens to have a little bit of inside information, maybe, about maybe some stuff going on in Dallas since he follows them probably as closely as we all follow the Cleveland Browns. And so, Jake, let's talk first and foremost. What is your prediction of the game today?
So I think it's actually going to be a really close game. I know that a lot of experts, so as they say, are going to pick the Cowboys, but I think it's going to be a really close matchup. 27-24 Cowboys. I think they're going to win, but I think it's going to depend a lot on our secondary and on how the defensive lines play in this game, because I think the biggest weakness right now for the Cowboys are our offensive line and our secondary. And
Yep.
the Browns have a really, really good D line. Richardson's been killing it. Obviously, you got Myles Garrett, so it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I think the defenses in both. If you look at the defenses for the teams that for both teams, obviously we give up a lot of points, right? We have a high-powered offense with all the stars, with Baker and OBJ and Jarvis and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and blah blah blah. I can go on forever, right? But you guys also have a very powerful offense with Dak and Zeke, Cooper, CD. You guys got some players who could score points, right? So really, I think it's going to come down to really who gets the breaks in this game. Turnovers are going to be important. Penalties are going to be important. Both teams like to get penalized, right? Both teams like to turn the ball over from time to time. So I think this is going to be. I think if we look at the power rankings, let me look at ESPN power rankings right now, because I think the last time I looked at it, the Browns and the Cowboys were really close. So they have the Browns at 18 and the Cowboys are 17 in the power rankings. So it's like right there, right? Evenly matched team. So I'm excited about it. What are you doing for the game? How are you watching it?
Yeah, I'm going to watch it at home with my wife. We're going to sit in front of the TV. I'll be wearing my Dak jersey and my cowboy hat, watching the game. I'm really excited to see if we can actually put a good game together. I mean, last week was was disappointing. I don't know how we won that game versus Atlanta. We should be 0-3 at this point, to be quite honest. Picking up that onside kick was, um, I mean, the special teams coach for Atlanta needs to be fired. That's just my opinion. Um,
I think
but
all the
when we
coaches
when
at
we look
Atlanta
at
are probably sweating it at this point.
yeah, but when you look at the teams that we got going in, our defense is completely decimated. Like, we've got two starting linebackers, Van Der Esch and Sean Lee are both on IR.
Mhm.
You got two cornerbacks that are out. Our secondary has just been decimated. They picked Diggs apart last week at Seattle. Um, but our defensive line's doing really good. You got Antoine Woods, DeMarcus Lawrence, Zentari Poe's a freak. So I think it's going to come up to the offensive line, defensive lines, and if OBJ can put one together against the secondary, it's going to be really scary for the Cowboys. But on the flip side, if we can get some good passes, and just keep that defensive line at bay for a couple seconds, I think we can make some big plays. So it's going to be very interesting. But what is your take? Well, how are you feeling about it? What's your prediction? I want to know, because I know we've talked about this for a couple weeks now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really close game. I think realistically, um, going into an away stadium is always like something that you're going to have the disadvantage from the home field, right? You're also a turf field, artificial turf, right? So it's not the same surface that we're used to. Should be a little bit speedier than what we're typically used to on natural grass. You know, to be honest, I think it could go either way. I think it could be like a 28-30 game, like something really weird. And I think it could come down to a last minute field goal. It could go into overtime. I can see this being an overtime game where something happens. We don't have the most consistent kicker in the world, right? So we had to get rid of our kicker earlier this year. We picked up Cody
The big
Parkey.
boy.
We got him. I mean, so like we don't have the most consistent special teams play. So if it comes down to a field goal at the end of the game, I think you guys probably have the advantage there, already having a kicker who's made one at the end of the game to win it. So I pick the Browns to win every week, so I'm going to pick the Browns again this week
Yeah.
to win. I'm going to say 28-30. I think we put up 30 points, and I think we hold Dallas to 27, 28 points. and it'll be really close, and we'll end up. I think what's going to happen is come down to the final drive. The Browns will be losing 27-28, right? So all we'll need is a field goal. We'll come down, and and we'll get it all the way down to like the 20-yard line. We'll make the chip shot, and we'll get the hell out of Dallas. So it was funny. I was reading, and I saw some tweets. The last time the Browns actually beat Dallas in Dallas was in 1994, in December 10th, 1994. I was 14 years old. My dad and I were watching the game, and it was nationally televised because I specifically remember like this game because it's big. I mean, the Browns were very good that year. We won 10. I think we won 10, maybe even 11 games that year. But we did well. We went to the playoffs, and Dallas had come off of 2 Super Bowls. It was I think it was the first Barry Switzer year, right? So Browns go in there, and the Browns had a stacked team. So not only were we coached by Bill Belichick, but you know who our defensive coordinator was in that game? Nick
Phillips. Oh.
Nick Saban.
What?
Yeah, so Nick Saban was our defensive coordinator, and Bill Belichick was the head coach. Can't remember who was offensive coordinator at the time, but I mean our team was stacked.
Wow.
We had Vinny Testevarde, who was coming into his prime. We had wide receiver Derek Anderson, who on the Browns didn't do super well, but went on to Kansas City to light things up. Kansas City. So Derek Anderson, the wide receiver. Michael Jackson, also known as Michael Dyson, but turned his name to Michael Jackson. Chris Berman used to always get excited with him when he used to score touchdowns. Eric Metcalf, Leroy Hoard. We had, and then on defense, Eric Turner, Michael Dean Perry. I mean, we had a really well talented and oiled team that year. And I think the Cowboys, that was a weird year for the Cowboys, because they had dominated in 92 and 93, and then 94 comes around. They get rid of Jimmy Johnson. They bring in Barry Switzer because Jerry thought that anybody could coach that team with that much talent. And that was the year that, remember at the end, where Barry Switzer was telling Troy he didn't have any plays called. He was just like, go, run a play. And Troy Aikman sitting there in his head going like, give me the play to play. And he's like, well, just call something. Like, so they kind of fell apart that year. I think the 49ers won it in 94. They came back in 95 and then won it again with Bernie Kosar. So I don't know. There's a lot of rich history, I think, that goes along with this. It was a really exciting time for us back then, but I don't know. How old were you in 1994, by the way?
I was 8 months old to the day of that game.
Okay, to the day.
To the day of that game, I was 8 months old.
So
April 10th is my birthday in 1994.
So there's a good chance that you don't remember it, right?
I don't remember anything about that year. I've heard stories about the great Cowboy years when we were actually relevant. Anything past 2000, it just hasn't been good for us. So I'm hoping at some point we can turn it around. But in my honest opinion, until Jerry Jones takes a step back and stops being the GM, we're never going to be good, because you've got a guy that owns the team and he wants to manage the team at the same time, and I just don't think the two go together. Because you're being pulled by your wallet and by your interest in the team. Just hire somebody, let them manage it, and enjoy it. Like I can't imagine owning a team and then managing it at the same time. I would never have any fun, because I'd just be pissed off all the time, like having to make those decisions all the time.
I think you're right. I think Jerry oftentimes gets in over his head. He thinks he knows more about football than anybody else. I mean, to his point, I mean, he's been around football for pretty much his entire life, college and the pros, and owns the team. He's got plenty of experience with it, but he does like to meddle, and I think that is the downfall. And then you look at a team like the Patriots with Robert Kraft. He just gets out of the way. He gets out of the way and lets his football people manage it. Jerry just, for some reason, does not want to allow his football people to actually run the show, right? Because he just thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. But yeah, I think you're probably right. That I don't know, but I think that Cowboys this year have talent. Like they have the offensive talent.
They've got talent every year. I mean, we've always got talent. I mean, it's like you said in 1994, anybody could coach that team. And I think it's the same. It's the same issue every year. Is you've got the talent to win.
Yeah.
It doesn't come together, and it's every year. And heck, I went to Texas. I know about hype. Like it's every year they say this team's going to come out and they're going to be something special, and then we let you down. Like that's just how it happens. And it's the same this year with Texas. Not to go to college ranks, but everyone was all hyped up on Texas. We lose yesterday to TCU, and it goes back to, man, what's going on? Again,
Right.
we cannot put together a meaningful season. We win a wild card game, and everybody's all up in arms, but we haven't won a Super Bowl since '95. Since I was one when we won our last Super Bowl, and
Yeah.
even sniffing the Super Bowl, it was since that time. We haven't won a divisional game since '95,
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
I mean, I
nuts.
remember the Tony Romo years where it was kind of hit or miss. You guys had some talent. You guys were well coached for the majority of it, and it really came down to that one field goal where Tony Romo fumbled it, and they would have won that game, and that could have maybe continued that season going, right, and got them possibly to the Super Bowl. So yeah, you're right. I mean, there's been some heartbreaks recently with the Cowboys. They haven't been able to quite do it. I think you guys got really lucky and fell into an awesome quarterback with Dak Prescott. I don't think he gets as much respect as he should get. He's thrown a bill. They throw
Or
66% of the time in Dallas.
he's thrown over 450 yards in the past two games.
Uh,
And I mean, it's insane.
it's
But
crazy.
he's been sacked six times. I mean, he gets sacked twice a game, which is that's rough.
I mean,
And
you're gonna get hit a lot if you drop back to pass that many times in the NFL, and they're gonna know that they could tee off on you, right?
yeah,
So, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see if they continue to try to do that or if they try to switch it up. Because they have the same, I think the Cowboys, from what I've seen, have the same kind of issues that the Browns do. If when you're asking too much of the quarterback, and both have young quarterbacks, right? Dak a couple years more than Baker, but still young quarterbacks. You ask these guys to do too much, and it turns into losses. Right? Statistically speaking, that's what happened to Baker, and statistically, I think that's starting to be proven out with Dak. If they can run the ball, you guys have a good running back. Who besides you? Who do you have? Who does it go to besides Zeke? If Zeke needs a breather, who's your backup?
uh, Tony Pollard, and we haven't seen much of him, right? And then there's Rico Dowdle, and I don't really even know if I've seen him much. Zeke's really the guy, and that's kind of the hard part, right? Is when you've got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the same backfield, you've got an ability to go 1-2 punch
Yeah,
and give your guy a breather. When you're giving Zeke 20 carries a game, he's the only one carrying the ball. Like you get tired after a while.
yeah.
And Zeke's awesome. He's great, but that's the difference between Dallas's running back core and yours is you've got the ability to put in a guy that's on almost just as good as Chubb. Now, Chubb's unreal, but Kareem Hunt is a really, really good running back.
Oh my god,
So,
dude, we are
yeah,
very lucky to have those. This is I say this all the time. This is the most talented Browns team I've ever seen. And in terms of having two potential Hall of Fame running backs, Kareem Hunt leading the league a couple years ago. Nick Chubb he should have led the league last year if Freddie Kitchens knew what the hell he was doing. So we've got two monster running backs. It is a luxury that we really haven't had since the '80s in Cleveland, to be honest. We've had decent running backs in the early '90s. We had Leroy Hoard and Metcalf and Tommy Vardell for a little while. But really, if you think about the powerhouse Browns, when I was a little kid in the mid '80s, so like '86, '87, '88, with Kevin Mack and Ernest Biner. That was the year where we had this 1-2 punch. Mack was like the big, strong fullback bruiser, and then you had the shifty guy with Ernest Biner who could catch the ball as well. So it was an amazing 1-2 punch, and I think we have a very similar thing with Nick Chubb being more like Kevin Mack and Kareem Hunt being more like Ernest Biner, being able to catch, and Kareem Hunt could catch the ball. So I think that for the key to the game for the Browns is, can we establish the run, and if we get that going and we get a lead, I think we're good. I think we're going to hold on, because the more you run, you played football, you know this. The more you run the ball, I mean, when you had teams that would constantly be running the ball at your defense, they get tired, right? And if you're as an offensive lineman, sit there and continuously push. If you're pushing as opposed to pulling back, you're gonna have the luxury of kind of like being in control of what goes on. So I think that's what happens. The Browns can get ahead, and we can establish the run. How is your defensive line specifically? What have you seen for the first couple games? Defensive line teams running the ball against Dallas.
Well, so Dallas last week we didn't do very well. We gave up 117 yards versus Seattle, but for the year so far we're giving up 3.8 yards a carry, which is not bad. I mean, we're doing really, really well up front. We had one off game versus Seattle. But overall, I mean, we got a guy that Antoine Woods had 3 sacks last game. So I mean, we've got a defensive line that can make things happen. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence is really good. Dontari Poe is a mountain in the middle. And I think that we have an ability to stop the run.
What about Aldon Smith?
Yeah,
that freaking monster.
Yeah, well, it's like you're saying, if you're able to push the ball down the field and tire them out, it makes a difference. When you're passing the ball all the time, you're really making your offense one dimensional. And as an offensive lineman, I get it. Like when we were able to run the ball, I think that the metric that we went by when I was playing was 120 yards. Whenever we got 120 yards rushing, we won like 95% of the games we played. That was the statistic. Like when we were running the ball, 120 yards was the key. If you got 120 yards, we won. If it was under 120 yards, we lost like 87% of the time. Like it was
running
crazy
wins
how accurate it was. And that's the big thing. Defensive line can only do so much, but when you've got 2 Pro Bowl linebackers out, and Van Der Esch and Sean Lee, that's an issue. Like those 2 dudes are beasts in the middle, and those defensive linemen can hold up those offensive linemen, but you got to make the tackle in the back end, and that's where we have an issue. I don't think that we have the. Aldon Smith is great, absolutely. Jalen Smith is awesome, but I don't think that they're Jalen Smith is best linebacker we got, but I wish we missed Van Der Esch and Lee, that's for sure.
Van Der Esch, I feel like that guy's a stud. He reminds me of like AJ Hawk and like Clay Matthews, right? I mean, he's just a monster dude in the middle, super athletic, smart kid, can play, corn fed.
I remember, but people were pissed. People were pissed when they drafted him. Like we drafted him so high, and he's definitely proven that he can play the ball. So I have a question for you. What are your thoughts on OBJ in 3 games into the season?
I think OBJ is they're evolving him into really what the player he's going to be for the rest of his career, which is a potential deep threat. But more of a possession type guy, who's going to come up with not the short passes, but the mid tier passes, like middle of the field type stuff. And he's not going to be a featured player. Unfortunately for this Browns team, the featured players are our running backs, and our offensive line is going to determine the success of that. Then OBJ is going to benefit from the fruits of that with play action, be able to get open. We might be able to crank one downfield to him, 1 or 2 per game, maybe, if we want to try to hit a home run, if we've got a play designed for him. But him and OBJ and Jarvis at this point are very high tier possession receivers, and that's a good thing for us because it takes the pressure off of Baker having to get it to those guys to win. If you look at the Bengals game and the Washington game, we won those games off the back of our running backs. I mean, they were the ones who did it, and then OBJ and Jarvis helped us with some field position. But at the end of the game, where we actually had to move the chains and actually score again, those guys were the ones who did it. And we'll see what happens. I think the body language from game one with Odell was pretty bad. He was pissed. It seemed like he didn't want to be there, and it just like anything happened, he was just pissed off. And I think that it affects locker rooms. I mean, I played sports all my life, not at the level that you did, but have you ever had anybody that was like a superstar type guy who was pissy and it just infected the locker room?
Absolutely. I remember my second year at Texas, we had some guys that did some things, and I'm not going to call names. Like they're playing in the NFL now. They're really good players, but they just did some things that that didn't seem like they were above the law when it came to acting right and doing the right things. Like they just whined and moaned all the time about how certain things weren't going the right way, and doing just very uncharacteristic things, which I think that's reflective on how you play. But some of those guys, at the end of the day, some of those guys are so talented, it doesn't matter, right? Like they're so good, they can be that way and still be just a freak on the field.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes the difference between a mediocre guy and an NFL player is you can't teach that. You can't teach that ability. Like Myles Garrett was always going to be an NFL guy.
Right.
I watched him play in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Dallas. Like we always knew about Myles Garrett. The dude's a freak. Connor Williams, the left guard for Dallas. I played with him at Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Dude was always going to be an NFL guy. Like he's always been a freak. But the difference, to back to your question, is there are always those guys that they can make the locker room a very divisive and like infected place.
Yep.
And it really brings you down. Like I think we went 5-7 at Texas my redshirt freshman year, and that was a big key to it, was that that toxic relationship in the locker room from those star players that they think that they think they're better than everyone else, and it just it's hard to get past that.
And to get to your point about OBJ, I think that I think he's having a hard time because he's such a superstar, right? And what happened to him when he made the catch in New York, and that elevated him to almost like a household name. Like my mom knew who Odell Beckham was before he was on the Browns. I mean, and she doesn't know anybody. She doesn't know, probably could name like 2 players on the Browns. She can name Odell because he's such a star. And I think he's having a tough time internalizing the fact that if I'm this big star, I have to be able to produce to prove to everyone that I still am and that I should be given all these accolades, right? And the reality is he's gonna have to admit to himself that he's not the focal player on the team. He's a very, very solid role player. And I think that's just what it is, because we just have too many stars. Like if you think back to those Dallas teams, you guys had Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith. Everybody knew about them. But then you also had really good role-playing teams like Daryl Johnston and Jay Novacek and Alvin Harper. I mean, you had guys that were like clearly the A Hall of Famers, with Emmett and Michael Irvin and Troy Aikman. And then you had these really, really strong B-plus players that would have been the A players on other teams, but they were on Dallas and they knew their role. And I think that's the challenge with OBJ is accepting this new role as not the feature player in the offense. And, so last game, for really good example, we used OBJ as bait, essentially. So he was in the slot, and he comes around. He kind of does like a little hook. It draws in the safety and the corner who were on him, and it opened up Harrison Bryant in the end zone for a touchdown. I mean, it's like little things like that allow you. So the guys are second tier guys, like our tight ends, are the other guys like Kaderil Hodge, who's a wide receiver. It's going to open up opportunities for those guys because you have to respect OBJ as a player, but not necessarily get him the ball, right? So, and yeah. I think from a Cleveland fan perspective, if I'm being honest, I was excited when we had Odell. when we got him in, I think everybody in Cleveland was really excited that Odell was coming because it was a superstar, right? But then the reality kind of sunk in that like he's a wide receiver, and if you're not Randy Moss, right, who's just a monster, Calvin Johnson, or just somebody who's just huge and can take over. I mean, he's not a giant guy; he's a speedy guy, right? So. Yeah. And then we also have a young quarterback who's got some, he's going to have a little bit of confidence issues. OBJ drops balls from time to time, which is odd because in warm-ups he's catching the ball, with his eyes closed, backhanded with one hand. But in the game, it'll hit him right in the hands and he'll just drop it, right? So I think
it's got to be infuriating
for him and for the fans, for everybody.
Yeah, like. Quit doing the one-handed catches in warm-ups because you're not going to catch the ball in the game.
Exactly. I think that's the thing that's really – he puts on these circus act shows for warm-ups, and it's like just execute in the game. You don't drop any passes. We don't care what you do. You can catch the ball with your under your arm. I don't care what you do. Just catch it in the game. So I think a lot of people are that's the reality of what it is. Like OBJ is a great player. The defensive have to respect him. In terms of Dallas's secondary, because it looks like it seems to me from what I'm hearing, their defensive line is at least serviceable. The linebackers are a bit beat up, but how about the secondary? What can we expect today when they're facing Odell and Jarvis and Hooper and those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a question mark. Like last week versus Seattle, when you're going against a good group of receivers, there's a breakdown. Like they hit on Trayvon Diggs all game last game, and he's a rookie. I mean, understand it's against a rookie, but you have one guy, Chidobe Awuzie, that's out. He's an IR. Maurice Kennedy is out as well. So you got two of our corners that are gone. Now Jordan Lewis is good. Xavier Woods is good. Trayvon Diggs isn't bad, but it's, they're going to pick on him. Like I would see Cleveland today picking on Diggs based off of last week's film. I mean, that's just, you're going to pick on the guy that you had the most success with against last week.
Yeah.
And we're giving up more points than we're scoring right now. Dallas is scoring 29 points a game, but they're giving up 31. So it's, you gotta find a way to limit you can't win a game. Doesn't matter how many points you score if the defense is just giving up everything that you can't.
Yeah.
So I think today it's focus on the cornerbacks and that linebacker core. I think defensive line is going to do just fine, but I think it'll come down to if they can stop the run versus Kareem Hunt and Chubb, it's going to make it very hard for your offense to do some big things. But it's really going to test that secondary. So my key focus today is watch the lines and watch that secondary. And I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch.
Well, it's interesting. I'm looking at the Cowboys schedule. You get the Giants next week. That should be a win at home. Then you go to the Cardinals, who are dangerous yet beatable. I think Kyler Murray is still beatable at this point, but they're going to put up a lot of points too. So that could be an interesting one. I'd probably go with the Cardinals in that one. No, I'm sorry, you don't go. They're coming to you. Okay, and then it's going to be close. Then depending upon what you guys do this week and next week will determine like how it would go with that one. You go to Washington where you'll win. You go to Philadelphia, who's in shambles right now, so you should win that one. You get the Steelers coming to you. The Steelers right now they're 3-0, but they're unproven since they haven't played a team who's won a game. So who knows what happened there. Then you get the Vikings in Minnesota, which I think you should be able to win that one towards the second half of the season. Washington to get it home, that's a win. At Baltimore, that's going to be very similar to the Browns. Like it's all running. Yeah. You got to be able to stop the run. You can stop the run, you make it a game, but that might be a scary one. You get the Bengals in Cincinnati, you should win that. You get the 49ers
it's a loss
at home. I think it could go either way. I think that could go. Yeah, that's going to be close though. I think that could go either way because they're beat up. Garoppolo's gone. Kittle, I don't know what's happening with him. I think he'll be back, but who knows? And then you finish off with the Eagles at home and the Giants away. I mean, like, I'm looking at your schedule. I like your schedule better than I like ours, to be honest. And we have an easy one going on.
Yeah, I think that our schedule is actually really kind of mild compared to others. There's only really 3 games that I'm really worried about, and
Okay.
it would be at Minnesota, at Baltimore, and versus San Francisco. I mean, if I'm just looking at it straight up, New York, not very good. Philadelphia's beat up. Cincinnati, I love the kid Joe Burrow, but he's still a rookie, and they've got some things to get fixed. But Minnesota's always been good, and at Minnesota's a hard place to play.
Yep.
At Baltimore, that's
Very
that's a
hard.
rough that's just a rough game.
Yeah.
And then I understand San Francisco's coming here, but they were in the Super Bowl last year. Like they're really good,
Yep.
regardless of Jimmy G or not. They've got a really good team. And then the only other team that I would say makes me worry is Arizona.
Yep.
And I only say that because Kyler Murray's a freak. He
Yeah,
will
he's
shake you out
dangerous.
of your shoes. He's very dangerous. Um, so I think we have 4 potential losses, and I think we can win the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dallas is a playoff team. I picked Dallas against the Falcons, and when they were getting crushed, in week 2, I was like, oh god, great. Well, we lost that one because I'm in a pick and lead with my dad, and then they came back and they kicked that field goal at the end, and I was going nuts. I was like, this is unbelievable. I was a Dallas fan that game. Last week I picked the Seahawks. This week I'm taking the Browns. I think the Browns. I think this is an interesting game for us for a couple reasons. Mike McCarthy, new coach of the Cowboys. He does not want to go 1-3 and have to go explain to Jerry Jones that he just lost to the Browns, a team that he didn't want that job. He wanted the Dallas job. I wanted Mike
Yeah.
McCarthy, by the way, and it looks like I could be very wrong with Kevin Stefanski. We'll see. We will see. Today is a big test for us. This is a playoff caliber team, not a Super Bowl, a direct Super Bowl contending team like the Ravens were in Week 1. I think the Cowboys
This is
are
a wild card team.
right.
We're a wild card team.
I would 100% agree. I think you guys are going to win your division with Washington, New York, and who else is in your division?
And
The
Philadelphia.
Eagles. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you guys are going to win
It
your.
is not
You guys
great.
could go 8-8 and win your division, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I'm thinking that my season prediction would be we're either 10-6 or we're 9-7, and I think that solely relies on today's game versus Cleveland.
yeah, this is going to
Today's
be.
game versus Cleveland will tell us if it's a 9-7 or 10-6, 11-5.
Dude, I'm
If we
100.
lose today,
I
we
feel
go
the exact same way
9-7.
about us. I feel 100% the same way because this is the test. If we can go to Dallas and beat the Cowboys, we've proven that we can beat a legitimate team, right? And you can see the Browns teetering, going like last year. We were 2-2 at one point with Freddie Kitchens, and we thought it was all going to be all downhill from there because we had a lot of easy games on the schedule, and we just kind of fell apart. This is going to be the one for Stefanski. If he can go in and prove that he can do this, it goes from a 8-8, 9-7 to a potentially 10-6 team that I'm looking at. But it really today is the test, and it's for both teams. There's a lot riding on this game, right? So I really appreciate it, man. Thank you, Jake. Thanks so much for coming on, dude. It's too bad that Andrew Billings isn't playing this year because then we could have told some really interesting stories. Jake actually played against Andrew Billings in college, and Andrew opted out for COVID, unfortunately, because he could have been a guy who might have helped us out a lot if he would have made the team. Who knows? But yeah, dude, I'm super appreciative of you coming on. I love your perspective on the Cowboys. We're gonna be watching this one very closely, and we'll talk tomorrow at work.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it. Hope it's a great game, and thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
All right, appreciate it, Jake. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, go Cowboys.
Go Cowboys. All right, guys. So we've got my dad coming on. We've got, let me go ahead and boom. So my dad's coming on next. So bear with us for one quick second. I'm going to grab a drink real quick, grab a water, and we will be right back. Alrighty, guys, we have my dad on as usual. I just want to change one little quick thing here. Boom. And get rid of our Jake little thing there. Boom. There we go. Brownie Post Dan is on. Dad, how's it going?
Good, good. Listen to your chat with your friend there on the Dallas side of things, and interesting perspectives all the way around. Agreed with everything you guys were saying back and forth. Going to be a good game. Going to be a good game.
Yeah, yeah, it was really interesting. Jake started at Texas and then went to got injured and then transferred to Arkansas to finish up his career. He was a letterman at both. Ended up playing against a lot of guys who are currently in the NFL. Jake is an offensive lineman, 4-star guy out of high school, and is one of the guys that I work really closely with in day to day. So, and he's a big Dallas fan. So when I was like, "Hey man, you got to come on the show. We got to have you on. I'd love to hear your perspective on it." Both because he actually knows about football. He's not just a random fan. He's a player. So it's great having him on. Yeah, so how interesting was it? Did you see the tweet that I put out there? The last time we beat the Cowboys, it was 94, and we were coached by Bill Belichick and Nick Saban at the time.
Wow.
Two possibly greatest coaches in their respective, at least in modern times, in their respected divisions of the pros and college. I remember when I was a kid, I was young, I was like, early teenager, and we had Nick Saban. I remember you and I were sitting there going, dude, this defensive guy the Saban guy's pretty good. He could be the guy who takes over after Belichick if something goes south with Belichick, after the whole Bernie Kosar debacle. He wasn't really well loved in Cleveland. Even when they were doing well, people were still not in love with Belichick. But yeah, I mean, that was a crazy. I actually remember that you and I were watching that game. I don't remember where we were, but I do remember why. It must have been a nationally televised game because it was December 10th, and we were both really good teams, so it must have been on TV, which is a random thing for us in Central PA to get the Browns game.
Sure.
And it was probably a late game. It was probably a 4 o'clock, which is odd that today's game is a 1 o'clock game. I would have thought this would have been an afternoon.
Yeah, in Dallas, that's for sure.
Yeah, but time zone stuff.
Must be a lot of West Coast games today, and eating up the schedule, so they decided to put it at 1 o'clock, which is good. I think the weather's going to be good there. So he's got the shadows with the open ceiling.
Yep.
So it'd be interesting to see how we play on turf versus artificial turf versus grass. I think the key to the game, the one big overwhelming key, is defense. Whichever team plays defense better will win this game. I think the offenses match up fairly even, and then you got all the other game situations involved, that are typical in any game, which is turnovers, penalties, big plays, 3 and outs, special teams, game calling, breaks with the refs and whatnot, and the kicking game. That goes without saying every week. Those are elements that could play into it. I watched the game on Thursday night with the Jets. The Denver kid threw 3 interceptions, and late in the game too, a couple of them. One was a pick 6 that let the Jets back in the game. Darnell played pretty well. He didn't lose the game. He didn't throw his typical 6 picks and whatnot, and bad situations. So he wasn't the issue. It turned out the Jets defense, back and forth, they were good, they were terrible, they were good, they were terrible, and then at the end they let them win the game. They all those, you can have turnovers and you can have a great defense and whatnot. But if then all the other things, the penalty, they had a really bad penalty at the end of the game. They couldn't get off the field. They couldn't stop them.
The Jets are going to have a really rough season and I'm glad that we get the Jets and the Giants right at the end of the season. Unfortunately, it's going to be away both times, but we get them both. And I think they're going to be in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes at some point, because I think at this point with Sam Darnold, I just think I've said it all along. I think he's going to be a mediocre quarterback. I think he's just going to be an average quarterback in the NFL. I'm glad that we didn't take him. I'm much happier with Baker Mayfield, and we'll see where it goes. In terms of Dallas, did you get a chance to watch any of the Seattle game last week with Dallas?
Oh yeah, watch that. It was Seattle was pretty much in control most of the game, but Zach Prescott kept bringing them back. I mean, they go down a touchdown, they go down 10 points, and then he'd bring them in, bring them back and have a long play. And the Dallas Cowboys defense was just not capable of, Russell Wilson's tough to stop. I mean, I think he's, as far as the first 3 games of the year, I think he's the MVP, clearly. And if he continues it, I think we're going to see Seattle and Kansas City in the Super Bowl. I think they got the 2 best quarterbacks. They got great teams around them.
Seattle's defense is a little suspect, though. I mean, they're giving them a lot of points.
Zach put up 400 yards on them. I mean, so you're right that they can be beat, but when you got an offense that can, within 30 seconds, either get a field goal or get a touchdown, that's something to have in your back pocket.
Right. Well, I think this week with the Browns, I was telling Jake, we have to be able to establish a run. If we establish a run, we are in really good shape. It will be a downhill game for us if we can get going. But I think with Dallas's defensive line, I think they're pretty good. So we have to be able to wear them out and be able to establish that run. Keep, like we always say, we got to keep Baker under 35 passes, preferably under 30 passes. Get the ball to our playmakers when we need to. Hopefully we've got some stuff designed for Odell and Jarvis, who have been somewhat quiet so far this season. But I don't want to force it to them. I want them to just come naturally in the game. I'd like to see Austin Hooper get more involved. I think he got involved early in the game, and then that was it. We really didn't use him again, which is, you invest all that money and you get, we had the touchdown pass to Harrison Bryant, which is right.
I got to go get something, Mike. I'll be right back. Keep the channel going, and I'll be right back.
Sure, no problem. So yeah, it's gonna be a really interesting, guys. I'm thinking that. Oh, let me just give some shout outs to everybody. K-Dog's there. Gary Washington wanted a shout out today. And he's got some faith in the Browns, so I'm gonna give Gary Washington a big shout out today. If the Browns win, it's on him. He was the one who called it. Some of the guys in there are John Kearney. We've got Mick the Dog, Mike Muffler in the house. Saw some of the old school guys too. I don't know if Kyle was in here. Typical Gamer stopped by. Beast Grills. Benchent Drew. Lace Nix, Biscuit and Gravy, Browns fan 1977. Yeah, we got some of the old school guys in here. Got them all in. That's coming back. So yeah, I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I think it's going to be an exciting game. It's going to be a fun one to watch. I'm a little bit nervous about this one, though, to be honest. I am a little bit nervous because, I think Dallas is a very competent team. We're going to foreign territory that we're not necessarily used to playing in a dome type environment. So it's going to be one of those interesting games.
Yeah. All right, guys, I got a special deal going. If we win this game, I have the Bernie Kosar rookie card that we are going to give away if we win this game.
Going to put it up a little bit higher.
Only if we win this game, though. So,
all right, we win the game. We're going to give away the Bernie Kosar rookie card. Bernie Kosar of the Browns and of the Cowboys. A good one. A good time to give this one away.
He's on both.
An actual Bernie Kosar rookie card that I guess you picked up on eBay.
Right.
In pretty good condition. You have it upside down, Dad.
Wait a second. All right. Is that it?
Yep, you got it there.
All right. And it's got his rookie stats on the back. Let's see. Go this way, I guess.
Good stuff. All right. Well, that's cool. That's awesome. Appreciate that, Dad. So we got the Kosar rookie card coming in. Yep, we can see it. So we got that, and we will. I guess we'll ship it out to somebody if we win the game.
if we win the game,
which I think I think we got a shot at this one. I think we're going to be up and excited, and I think we're going to play up for this one. I think Baker's coming back home to Texas. You got OBJ who wants to wants to score a touchdown on that big star, right? So I think this is going to be an exciting one. I think the Browns are up for it. Myles Garrett's excited about this one as well. Dak is a guy that he should be able to get to, and if our defense can just hold, if the defense can hold them under 20 points, I think we can win the game. But anything over 20 points, it's going to be a flip of a coin, and it could come down to a last minute kick, just like in the Falcons game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they should be. Your guest Jake said they should be 3-0, and they should be. 0-3. They should be 0-3. But games, go all the way down to the last second, one way or the other, and you never know. You never count yourself out. That's why I was so surprised that they gave up so early last. Washington, they didn't use their timeouts. They didn't try to come back from a score down or two scores down. If I was a Washington Redskin fan, I would have been, throwing stuff at the TV. You can't give up that early in the hopes of not hurting one of your players,
Yeah, they just quit, and Ron Rivera just didn't even want to go for it for whatever. Maybe that's some direction from above, because if they don't believe that Dwayne Haskins is the guy, right, and you're losing the game, nobody's going to fault you for not for not winning the game if you're down and it's the end of the game like that. But to not try seemed a little weird. But again, if the Redskins want to have a shot at Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields, then you got to lose games, because the only way you're going to be able to get there, unless you get a team like the Jets or the Giants who have young quarterbacks, and some team wants to come up and just give them 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round, just give them an arm and a leg for a guy like Trevor Lawrence. Who knows? It's going to be a really interesting draft, to say the least, because I think teams at some point this year are going to come to the reality, if they haven't already, that they're not playoff teams. The Browns and the Cowboys right now believe that they still are playoff teams. They want to fight hard to get them, and they're both teams that don't necessarily need quarterbacks. We have young quarterbacks that believe in. But with Baker, the interesting thing about him is, he's been hit or miss for a lot. He had 2 pretty decent games in a row with Washington and Cincinnati. This defense is not a high-powered, Baltimore style defense. This is a team that he can beat defensively. So it's going to
get the running game going. And set up the play action, which will give him time in the pocket and give the offensive line, that extra half a second to protect him. And Will stays healthy on the left side, and you got Conklin back. It'll be a good game. Our passing game should be okay, and obviously our running game is really, really capable. So it's just a question of how well they play defense and what our game plan is. Does Stefanski come up with something that works? He's watched obviously all the tape. He's got a good coaching staff. See what kind of adjustments they make at halftime if something isn't working, that type of thing. So I'm looking at the defense, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out.
Well, hopefully. We'll see. I think on paper, if you just match us up, I think we have a better team. I think we do, and I think it's going to come down to special teams. It's going to come down to penalties and turnovers, and Dallas gets penalized quite a bit, but they're not the most disciplined team in the world. In terms of turnovers, they do turn the ball over, and if Dak's going to throw 40 to 50 times a game, they're going to have chances to pick the ball up, right? So we'll see if that trend continues. I think, unfortunately, the way that you can beat the Browns is by throwing the ball, right? So, and I would say that in terms of the running backs we've seen so far this year, there's nobody on Washington that I would be afraid of. But Joe Mixon, we kept him in check pretty easily. The Bengals sat there and said, we're going to throw the ball 100 billion times, and that's how we're going to beat you. And they actually made it a game. Joe Mixon wasn't really a factor. And if we do that to Zeke, then...
The key, I think, to watch early on is how our defense sets up.
Yeah.
Do we protect against the big play and we give him short yardage and he picks us apart like a Tom Brady? And then, of course, then you move up and you try to stop that. And then all of a sudden the running game with Ezekiel just kills you. So they have the same potential to light us up as we do to them, running game, passing game, that type of thing. So it's just a question of where the breaks go and can we outcoach them?
Yeah.
Can we outplay them? And you need both. You need to outcoach them and you need to outplay them.
Well, that's going to be the interesting thing because we got Stefanski coming into Game 4, right?
Mhm.
Potential to tie the Hugh Jackson era with 3 victories.
Right.
I literally can't remember the last time the Browns were 3-1. So we're going to have so much momentum moving forward off of this game because right after this we get the very beatable Colts at home, right? Which, by the way, next week my dad will actually be here, so we're going to do Brownie Post Game live, both together in the home studio. We're going to be watching the game together, which is going to be awesome. So that's going to be exciting because that'll be what, the second game this year. You watched one already? You watched what, the Baltimore game?
That'll be a good game because from everything I'm reading and seeing about the Colts defense, they're at the top of the list this year. I forget who they played, but I'm being interested to watch the game today and see how their defense holds up and whether it's consistent or whether they have a bad game or whatever. Also, typical gamer there just said, talked about Burrow. I'm going to watch that game too and see how well that kid continues. We got them in our pick'em as an upset, so I'm rooting for Cincinnati today.
So it looks like the Colts had played the Jags and they lost. They lost away in Jacksonville, 27-20.
Right.
Then they beat the Colts at home, 28-11. Pretty good. Beat them. And then they beat the crap out of the Jets at home, 36-7. So, but today they have a test because they're playing in Chicago,
right,
against the Nick Foles led Chicago Bears, who I think Nick Foles creates that level of just consistency that they need there, and I think he's an upgrade over Trubisky. So that's going to be a really interesting game and that'll determine just like this Cowboys game. This is a test. Right, we have to be able to perform against a playoff caliber team, and that's what Dallas is. As Jake is saying, it's a wild card game, right?
Right.
This is 2 playoff caliber teams. They have 2 very strong teams that are going to collide today, at least in terms of talent on paper. It's going to come down to it. So the Colts are going to have a test this week because to lose to the Jaguar, they could be 3-0, right? They could be 3-0, the Colts, and I think that they're a respectable team, but we'll get them at home then. So they have 2 away games in a row, and then they'll have a softer one against the Bengals after that. So the Colts,
right?
But again, they could be a playoff caliber team as well. So we've got a couple tests here in a row. This one, I think, for all intents and purposes, people were putting wins and losses on the Browns' schedule without even looking at it before the season. If you're going to chalk up a loss, this was probably a loss that most people would chalk up. It looked like every reporter, the Cleveland.com, every reporter has the Browns losing, which doesn't surprise me because there are a bunch of most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are kind of like anti-Browns anyway. I'm going to go with the Browns today. I think we're going to pull this one out. I think this is this is going to be one that surprises a lot of people. Right? I think most people are going to say the Cowboys. Probably in our pick'em league, most people have the Cowboys since it's we're giving up 5. I think we're gonna. I think at the very least we're going to cover. But I do think we are gonna pull off this game surprisingly, but it's gonna be back and forth, and there's gonna be points scored. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes over 50 points scored today.
Wow.
Because I think the over under is like 52, and I think I'd probably take the over on that based off of our defense, how good their offense is, and our offense, and how bad their defense. So
look how many points the Jets and Denver put up, two really bad teams, and they put over 60 points on the board. So anything can happen, and we got 2 potent offenses and 2, somewhat suspect defenses, especially in the secondary, which goes against the pass. So see who lights it up and who turns it down.
All right, guys. Hey, it's 12 o'clock. We got an hour to get ready for the game. So
Right.
a couple things we got going on. Like my dad said, we're going to, if we win, we're going to do the Kosar rookie card giveaway in the post-game show. So everybody, if you don't mind, hit like right now. Everybody stop what you're doing. Hit like on the video so we can be boosted up a little bit on their algorithm. So appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber, hit subscribe. Make sure you have the bell icon so you know when we go live, because we're going to go live every show post-game. This is the Brownie post-game channel, right? So we're going to go live right after this, probably about 4 o'clock, maybe a little bit after 4, see what happens,
Right.
if it goes on the schedule. I think most games end around 4 o'clock, so I have this one scheduled for 4. But we are going live, win, lose, or draw this afternoon, and we're going to be doing a Sabo apparel. We got the Believe in Cleveland Sabo apparel hat or shirt, whatever you want. We're going to do the Sabo apparel giveaway in the post-game show. So go Browns, and if we win, we got a chance at the rookie card. But no matter what, come back for the post-game show so we can give you something from Sabo apparel, who happens to be a sponsor of the show, along with Tim Ollie Realty, Homage, those guys. And if you guys want to join the Patreon, please do. It only costs $1. You get your name down there on the ticker. It helps us buy things like the Bernie Kosar rookie card that we can give away to everybody here. So consider being a patron. Hit that like. Thank you. When we went from 10 likes to 17, so everybody was listening and helped us out there. Appreciate it. All right, guys. Typical gamer, Mick the Dog, Max Nikolenko is here. Lace, Evan, K-Dog. What's going on, guys? Everybody, we'll see you guys back for the post-game show. And if Gary Washington is correct and the Browns win, we'll have something special lined up for Gary. He sent me a message on Patreon. I have something special lined up for Gary if the Browns win. So, all right, guys, thank you very much, and we will see you soon. Peace.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.